Hey guys, welcome back to Etheria Restart. In today's video, we are joined by another guest. We have Seishizo on to talk about the free-to-play aspect of the game. He is someone who also played free-to-play through the previous beta and did really well in some of the tournaments that we hosted as well, which is fantastic. So I'm not going to go too much. I'm going to let Seishizo introduce himself, where he's from, what he does. So Seishizo, thanks for coming on, man. Give a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. So I'm Seishizo. I've been playing, I think, gacha games for about 10 years right now, mainly just Summoner's War. I've been doing a whole bunch of guides on like speed clears, but also PvE content. I've been playing SWC, which is the big tournament, for 5 years. I've been casting it for 3 years. And I've been streaming, making content, creation kind of stuff for the last 6 years, I guess.
Yeah, so right into these style of games with Summoner's War. Yep. We know like the big three that this is like trying to, encroach in on. I think the big two is really Summoner's War and Epic 7, but also Raid Shadow Legends to an extent. But I think that has its whole own demographic. But you played through this previous beta as free to play, and that's why I wanted to get you on and talk about it, because I feel like, me personally, now this is not the beta account because the beta is over. This is just a test server account that we're going through. Like I was pushing really hard in the betas as free to play to try and grind arena, real-time arena and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm a bit of a free-to-play fraud. And after talking to you before this, you were definitely a free-to-play fraud as well, because we were doing things that you wouldn't do as free-to-play. So I want to talk about, like, basically just say, like, this is all the stuff that we did that we wouldn't otherwise do, just to set realistic expectations of free-to-play. For instance, buying out an extra 10 tickets in arena every day. You're not going to do that as free-to-play. I wouldn't recommend it. But just point out all that stuff, but then give our thoughts on, how we think the game is going to feel as free to play as well. So first of all, how did you end up doing in the beta in terms of the arena, the real-time arena and stuff like that?
I did for normal arena, I got rank 3, but I didn't refresh the tickets the first week, so I only did it the second week, so I came in a little bit late.
Yep.
And then for the real-time arena, I actually started pushing all the way when I had my full build, which was actually, I was going for the tournament, and I wanted to have everything on immunity, so everything was bulwark. So since day 6, I was farming Aurora for that. So it was either it's going to work very well, it's not going to work at all. That was kind of my strategy on that one. But therefore also started just doing RTA, I think in day 11 or day 10 or something like that. But I was sitting at a 96 win rate up until rank 25. And that's why I started losing a lot more. Because actually, if you know the meta already and you can kind of predict the meta and then you go one step ahead. I went full immunity. People were slapping in their Marvels, their Kraken. I'm like, Marvel, wasted pick. I'm full immunity. Kraken, wasted pick. I'm full immunity. Lily, wasted pick. I'm full immunity. Then they go 2 DPSs. I banned one. The last one can't kill me. Easiest win of my life.
Yeah.
But then the big issue came is like, okay, the moment you get into rank like 20, 25-ish, that's where people started bruising already. And that's why I started losing a lot more.
Yeah, that's definitely what I noticed too. Like I finished rank 14, I think it was in RTA, at about like an 87 or something % win rate. But yeah, towards the end there, especially when I started getting farmed by, I can't remember the dude's name at rank 1. He's a Brazilian streamer, I believe it is. But yeah, he was just farming me and I'm like, dude, I just got to exit out here. Like it's just not working too well because it does get a lot more competitive. What was that?
Was that Nobu?
No, I can't remember the dude's name. He wasn't in the tournaments. Dude, I can't remember. But yeah, he absolutely monstered me. He finished rank 1 in normal arena and RTA. But yeah, I definitely think that is something to note, even as free to play, is you can definitely win out with good strategy. Like you said, you farming Bulwark and going straight into the Aurora farm is definitely a strategy people can do. You jump into Aurora, you start getting those immunity sets, and you're sort of cooking from that point because the immunity sets is just like when everyone's going, oh, Marvel's OP, and then everyone's going making Marvel their fastest character to turn deny, and then just like you do nothing with that, and then it's like maybe they do full control where they got Marvel into Kraken. It's like it's just GG's from that point. So I definitely think that is something that stemmed. I know I saw it a lot in Summoner's War back when I played. It was like you needed immunity set and you needed shield set on as well, so that if they were stripping one buff, they'd only get the shield. Maybe there was all those chances. So yeah, I think it's definitely an experience thing. Now with the free to play aspect, because you said you were going to spend a little bit once you get into the actual game.
Yeah, I'm definitely like the 5-pack is just like, it's pretty much a steal to not do, because you get the 10% extra Etheria coins, which is just anyone that played for more than 7 days noticed that you're running out of the Etheria coins all the time.
Yep.
So just getting that 10% extra is really big. And then again, just to support a game, giving $5 is really not that big of an issue. I'm not going to say how much I spend in Sky Arena, but it's a lot more than that. But I actually played Sky Arena for the first 2 years, fully free to play as well. Since then, I've probably spent more than a decent car, but you get the idea. Like, I would recommend anyone first play free to play for a while. See if you actually enjoy the game. Maybe give this $5 pack for just the idea of like, hey, I want to help the development and that kind of stuff. But at first, I always recommend people not to spend, because the moment you start spending, you feel like you should be getting something. No, first actually go through the struggle. First go through the feeling of like, okay, how do I get resources? Do I feel like I'm connected to my account, to my units, to my characters? Do I enjoy the game? Do I enjoy the community? And that's where you can start thinking about like, hey, do I maybe want to spend a buck here or that? Yeah. But then also always only spend money that you can miss. This is a luxury product. Don't be like, oh, I can't buy my grocery because I dropped 100 in this game. Like, don't do that. Yeah,
put your big boy pants on. Like, let's be real about it. But that's something I always find too, is that when I play free to play, it's like summoning is exciting and getting something is exciting. When I used to spend, it was like I feel entitled to it, and then if I don't get it, I feel like robbed. You know what I mean? So
yep.
It's in my opinion, it's a completely different experience. But with, and like you said, starting out as free to play, if you're thinking about being a spender and you want to start free to play, the good thing about this game, and what I will do at launch, is you can still, because the game gives you enough free to play gems at the start of the game, you can still max refresh until I've heard some people say they'll do till like, and you don't have to refresh either. If you're happy to play more casually, not sort of compete at the start, that's perfectly fine, save for summons. But like I've heard some people say 45 so that they can start farming the mythic shells over in what's her face in Nico. I've heard some people say 50 so that they can start farming Inferno modes. The one thing to do with if you're going to do 50 is make sure you think you're going to be able to do Inferno, because that's something, like I said in the beta, I could only do Inferno on manual because Tiamat's AI is stupid. So like if you're pushing to that 50, it's about 4 more days of refreshes. But like I said, if you want to play like the first, 6-7 days and do max refreshes because you want to play as a spender, but you don't want to invest that money to see if you like the game, you can actually, and this is what we did in the beta, you can sort of play as a spender as free to play. The only difference is you don't have as many summons, but you still do get a lot of summons in the early game as well, which is just raw summon tickets while saving all your gems for the stamina refills. So definitely a good idea there. I definitely agree with that one. Play free to play because you can basically play as a spender as free to play. And that leads me on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is a lot of people are saying like, and I've heard Wales say as well, that it feels like they don't get enough of an advantage, and like free to play can really compete. And that's where I want to talk about, where do you foresee free to play further than like 10, 11 days of what we had in the beta? Because like I said, because you can max refill at the start, the only thing you're really behind on as a free-to-play player is the amount of summons you can do in the early game. That's pretty much the only difference. So it's just your roster depth. And also, the packs will give you a bit more ability to build more characters as well, because you do get some of those extra shadow prints and stuff like that, which are going to make an impact. But how do you foresee the free-to-play landscape moving, 1 month, 2 months into the game?
Well, that's always a difficult topic because we haven't seen the game further than pretty much 3 weeks. Like all of the betas were like 2 to 3 weeks. And we don't really know the landscape anything after that, because at first you got the hyperlink charter and it's all rainbow and sunshine. You get so many crystals. You can do a bunch of summons. You're still refreshing every day. If you keep up with this, I think if you still do all of the refreshes, next to all of your refresh up until level 50, I think you can still do like a 10 summon every day as well. That's how many of those you get if you like actively play and everything. But the big question is, where does your crystals come from the moment that the achievements are done? Mostly comes from arena clears. Might be a little bit more difficult because how far do you actually get into the game to be able to get those clears? I looked at the numbers for this, mainly the weekly rewards. They look very low because let's say you get a master, you get like 300, but the 300 is like 10 tickets that you can get in a day if you spend those. So that's kind of a low number that I would maybe like to see cranked up a little bit. You get a little bit in RTA, which does helps. RTA, you can play infinite, so there's no ticket system for that, which is actually interesting. I haven't seen that in other games yet, that there's an infinite amount of tickets that you could apply to this. Sure, you're not gonna, at some point, you don't really get more rewards, but you could play an infinite amount of matches if you would like to.
Yeah, the thing is, the points you earn from playing matches is capped every week.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, you can't buy out the shop.
20. Yeah, but, like I think it's 2,000. You win 20, and then you get those 2,000. But then the big question is something we haven't seen yet is guild content. I assume it will give crystals and events. And currently the events were kind of small on the crystal side, but that is definitely something that we haven't seen any events that come later than a month, because I think most of the events will be rotated around in the first week, 2, maybe 3. And then afterwards, like, okay, where do my crystals then come from? Or are your crystals going to come from something that resets? For example, I think the Amber Track doesn't.
And Ethernet. No, Ember Trek and Ethernet Rally both reset.
Yeah, exactly. So that will give you a decent amount where free-to-play is like, okay, maybe you shouldn't focus as much if you really want to free-to-play about doing arena and stuff. Maybe focus more on, let's say, it's like, okay, can I clear Amber Track to the highest stage and therefore get my free-to-play resource? Because that's what I noticed from Summoners War. When I started playing Summoners War, most important thing for me was pick up all the free-to-play crystals that I could. So try to get the highest rank in arena. Try to do TOA, which is pretty much like an infinite tower kind of thing, similar to an Amber Track. And try to maximize your account, build the units that you want to focus on for getting more crystals. And if you play very efficient free-to-play, I think you can get very far, because I've seen that time and time again as well. People spend a lot of money, but there's another resource than money, and that is time. And I think time for a lot of people values way higher in these games, because these games are knowledge games. The more you know, the better you will play. But if you just spend a lot of money, but you don't spend the time and effort, you don't gain the knowledge, you're going to be shit. It's just simple fact.
100%. And even just playing a few games of RTA, you start to learn what the counter picks are. Like when we were playing the tournaments, like it was like at that stage, most people only had 2 healers built, which was Sanya and Ling Luo. And so if someone picks Tiamat, the counter pick was pick both healers, because then it's really hard for Tiamat to actually get to her transform. Now she can use her skill 2 to get herself there, but it makes it a lot more difficult, and you can nuke her down before she actually manages to get that heal over time to be able to do it. So definitely time in game definitely helps. But I do still think that people are overly emphasizing how free-to-play it is because of the short term that we've had the betas. And I don't want to set a false expectation that, you're going to be able to get top 10 free-to-play. Like the fact, like, I just think it's always like, if you're free-to-play and you spend a lot of time in the game, you optimize well, you get a little bit lucky on some of your drops and stuff like that, you can definitely compete. But if you've got people that are spending thousands of dollars over many months, they just start outscaling you on the gear that they can get, the units that they have. And yes, there will be some whales, like you said, who don't optimize and don't learn the game and don't have the time to play, and you can beat them. But if you're playing against a whale who's also invested the same amount of time and effort and understanding as you, odds are they should probably beat you based on that stuff. And the other thing, like we mentioned, with the gem income, is another very important thing to consider is going to be the summon income, which once again, which would be the summon tickets, which, Amber Trek as well will give us some. But I don't know, once we get through all these early rewards, what the actual recurring summon income will be. Like when we have updates, do we get more? Because the summon income is huge at the start of the game. But if you're putting every summon you have in the game early on into, obviously the standard banner is something that I've never thought I would say, like, ignore raid ups, just go the standard banner. But the standard banner is just such high value in this game. But if you're putting so much into the banners early on to build out your roster, what happens when you hit that point where now you have no more summons, they're releasing new characters, and you just purely cannot summon for them, especially light darks that cost 300 per summon. Like, I got 3,000 gems here. That's all gone on 110 pull for Messiah. So I do think that's another thing to consider when we look forward, is, how much you're going to be able to do. But I still do think that the game is very free-to-play friendly in terms of the dupes, one, not actually providing skill upgrades so you can play the character. Now, I've spoken in like 3 videos now about the dupes in RTA. I still think they should have either dupes deactivated to make more people happy, or active in one season, not active in the next, as a rotation. But at the moment, they are. We'll see if they change that from what it is. But I think the dupes not actually impacting the playability of a character is a really nice thing in the actual mechanics of the character. So I do think that is good. I think the SRs are very, very competitive. When I played in RTA in the beta, my only 2 damage dealers were Tiamat and Victor absolutely slapped. I would boost this guy with my Lily, and he would one-shot any DPS that they had. With the aid of White Fang, because White Fang hits like a truck. But he would have no attack buff, they would have no defense break, and he would just one-shot any other DPS, which was absolutely fantastic. So you got a bunch of them. Marvel we saw being really good. I think Valerians are really, really nice. Ditting is doing massive damage. We got Sanya, we got Grey, we got Chiaki, all fantastic units. Viper worked really well. I can't remember who was using Viper in the tournament, but that Viper was
Shiny.
Working. Shiny, that's it. Yeah, Shiny was like doing so well with that Viper. It was absolutely fantastic. We've just got a lot of really, really solid SR units.
There's actually another very interesting one, which I did see someone play against, and then everyone, including him in the chat, was like, this doesn't make any sense. If you scroll a little bit up, I think it's Kazuya. Yeah, Kazuya, the one that's on your top right, pretty much.
Oh, yeah. She's great for Doki farming too, for the CC.
Well, the thing is, the skill one is a 30% check, but I actually did some testing earlier. You can boost up that 30% to be close to, like, I'm not sure what the final number is. I think by the math that someone did, and that kind of would make sense, it would be going up to like, it's like 80% if you have enough accuracy. But 80% skill one sleep, he was just permanently slept, like he couldn't do anything.
I played against one of those as well, and they had it max skilled, and it's 2 turns sleep. And so they could put that between, and her passive is when she's put someone to sleep, she doesn't actually wake them up. So she could put someone to sleep with this, then get round to her skill 3 and actually put everyone to sleep. And not wake the other person up from their 2-turn sleep if she, cycled or whatever. So I had some annoying fights against her, and the only reason I won one of the games was because she missed one of her basic attack sleeps, which allowed me to cut in. But yeah, absolutely savage. And like I said, she is amazing for Doki Doki Boss, for dealing with those ads and getting that 90% damage reduction in Inferno off of them. The other thing to mention is this is a triple hitter, and it also has the attack down, which attack down is fantastic for helping mitigate damage on that boss as well. But yeah, also triple hitter with each having an activation chance on the slumber as well makes it so that you're pretty much always putting stuff to sleep in Doki Doki with that one, as opposed to like I was using Kraken, where Kraken's good because it's hard CC, so your other allies can't break it, but it is harder to reliably land. But as you mentioned, that 60% doesn't appear to be an activation rate. It appears to be blended with accuracy. So I think the way it's going to work is like, you still want a higher activation rate, because I think there might be a sort of certain activation rate where once you get low enough, you won't actually be able to make it reach 100% with accuracy. Correct. But if it's high enough, you should be able to make it reach 100% with accuracy. And I don't know if 60% is that marker or whether 80% is what you need. Not too sure. Really hope they give us the formulas. Yeah, I really hope they give us those.
Yeah, I really do hope they give us the numbers, but I tried it for a bit of testing earlier today. I could make the Marvel, which is skill 1, which is a 50%. I could make that to 100% with enough accuracy. And then I tried to look for like the lowest activation rate that I could find, which is actually one of the lower ones I could find was the, Messiah skill 1, which has vulnerable, and it's a 25% check. And with like 203 accuracy.
That's a double hitter though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a double hitter, but then I can look at both of the resistance, because it would have two names of resistance right there, which actually makes my checking a little bit faster, so that helps out as well. But I think that this one was up towards like 50 to 75% on a 203 accuracy. So definitely weird, because the 50% became 100, except for a built-in guaranteed resistance. This game, same as Summoners War, has like a built-in resistance. I think it might be 10%. It could be 15%. Most other games do 15%. but to the numbers that I did, wasn't really a big sample size. It felt closer towards 10%.
Yeah, because Summoners War, regardless of accuracy and resistance, there's a 15% chance to resist and land, isn't there?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's why I thought it was going to work. And then some people started testing like, hey, dude, this is and like, I remember when I was testing on stream with my Kraken, I'm like, ain't no way this guy's landing every freeze in Hell 4. Like, that just shouldn't be happening. So
I was saying the same thing on like when I was doing the testing. Like, I had a 50-50 check. That's a coin flip. I had like 8 in a row. It's like, yo, if those are your odds, I'm not playing in your casino, man. I'm gonna get broke. That ain't good right there.
100%. But I wanted to jump into, from your free-to-play experience, obviously I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts. What are some free-to-play tips that you think would be really beneficial to players jumping in as free-to-play or low spenders, of course, because once again, it's very similar free-to-play or low spender in the early game?
I would say really choose your units that can do a lot of things. So a little bit of units that are or jack of all trades. And I think Marvel is a really good option. A lot of people are saying like, oh, Marvel needs to be nerfed because it's too good in many things. But Marvel actually is really good in Terramaton, it's really good in Doki Doki, and it's really good in Aurora. Only in Aurora, I would rather move slower than your strip, but then again, it's still pretty good. And that's one of those units you would definitely have to focus on. Plus, I think a tip that's very useful is like know which units you would have to 6-star and know which units are totally fine on 5-star. And in most cases, supports that do anything based on ally max HP, such as Linglo, totally fine on 5-star. Any sustain unit that would go for, like, okay, I'm healing from my HP, such as Sanya, then you would go for like, okay, then you could consider the 6-star. Damage dealers, if they're full on damage, consider the 6-star. But definitely you're going to have less units built, and therefore you have to be more careful with your choices. What do you want to build?
Yeah, definitely 100%, like you said. And it also depends what you're focusing on. And that's something where, you know, in the beta, I was focusing in on Arena. So I maxed out my Lily, I maxed out my Linglo because they were my real-time Arena choices. And when you get into Arena, the HP matters. But, you know, I'd probably change that priority around when I get to the global. Like, maybe I don't do Lily. However, another thing with Lily was once I got into Inferno modes, I started getting slapped super hard. And because she's neutral element, I was like, okay, I would probably need to, if I was using my Lily, I would probably need to make her 6-star anyway, just for the raw stat bonus, because it's just so hard to get those things to survive. So there is like that balance as well. But definitely, yeah, your main DPS, your main supports that heal based on their stats are definitely really good ones to get up there. A lot of the supports, like you mentioned, you know, when we talk about Kazuya, dude, I can't even say it. But like, you know, if you're going to be bringing her into the Doki Doki fight as control, she does have positive element, meaning if you have a neutral element in your team, she's going to get hit by those AoEs, but hopefully not too much. So she can probably sit at that 5-star range. She has the attack down, which means it's going to help survive. Like maybe if I was using her instead of Kraken, and instead of, you know, Tiamat with the AoE, I was using Rosa, so sometimes she wouldn't be breaking it with the AoE. If I, you know, speed tuned Kaz to be lower than her, you know, I might be able to get into that situation where I'm only waking one target up per turn with my team, and so I can leave everyone lower, and when they are awake, I've got an attack break. So there's definitely all those things you can play with. But yeah, I definitely agree with, you know, targeting your units. And I think, and this is something you'll probably make content on, I'll make content on, having a roadmap of what you actually want to do. Because, you know, I've seen some people talk about, you know, trying to farm Aurora first. I've seen some people, you know, I think the common thing is Doki Doki farm first. I've even seen some people on Terramaton first. So making a roadmap of what you actually want to achieve and what units are the priority for that achievement. And I think something that a lot of free-to-play and budget spenders can get into in the early game is trying to focus on Arena, which, as you mentioned earlier, probably should not be the focus of what you're going for.
Yeah, exactly. I think your main focus and your main team should be focusing on how can I get more resources, especially if you want to play smart and free-to-play. How do you get most resources with as little units built as possible?
Yep, 100%. And that's going to be a big thing. And that's where I think someone like, if we go over to Heinrich, if you manage to get him, he's just so useful in a bunch of the other areas of the game where you have unique bosses. In the Echoes and in the Embertrek dude, I wish this account got boosted. It was meant to be boosted and it's still not. But you get so many different bosses in here that have different mechanics. Especially like, I think it was this boss here where you really want to get the heal block on. I can't remember which boss it was, but there was a couple bosses in here where like heal block and buff block were really, really beneficial. And, you know, Heinrich bringing those things just makes a lot of things easy mode. He's also great in PvP. He's great in the farming because you need strips and stuff like that. But yeah, just picking up the units that are going to be universal across the board and gearing them up as well. What's your thoughts? And this is one I was tossing up on modules because it is very expensive. You only get a 40% refund. Like what kind of modules were you upgrading? Now, obviously this account's very early on. Once we get into mythic modules, that's when you start dipping your toe in. But basically for me, anything that had 1 or 2 substats was basically a non-existent piece unless I needed that main stat and I had nothing else with it, because it just feels too expensive. Like something like this to roll through to unlock every substat to see what you get. It just feels way too expensive to do something like that on a piece like this, and you don't get the extra rolls.
Yeah, I would mainly say on the right side, I would be a little bit more forgiving. So the right sides are the ones with the HP bonus, attack bonus, crit rate, crit damage. I would be a little bit more forgiving because you mainly want to get that main stat, and then you just want to get the highest grade, so preferably mythic. On the left side, I would really focus on substats because the main stat is fixed.
Yep. Yeah, and once again, the one thing I do like though is, you know, especially if you get a a Swift Rush piece with 3 substats and it doesn't have speed, just rolling that one extra, one up, because it's only 2 upgrades to find your final stat. I rolled every one of those to find the final stat just to see if I could get that speed in it as well. Because if you're running Swift Rush, you really want that speed, and you know, burning a tiny little bit of silver to unlock that final stat to see if it is speed, I think is definitely worth it along the way on any piece. Obviously, you'll get to a point in the game 6 months in where now I'm only rolling 4 subs, but you know, in the early game, I do think that is definitely reasonable. The next thing I want to ask you is, what's your thoughts on summoning as free to play?
I would say, well, I come from Sky Arena, and from Summoners for Sky Arena, we pretty much say use all your crystals for energy refreshes. And there it's unlimited. You can do unlimited refresh. I kind of like the idea that there's 10 refreshes, which once again, if we're talking free-to-play, makes it a lot more free-to-play friendly rather than some dude sitting in his basement with like a gazillion dollars refreshing all day, every day. So that's definitely there. But I would still say, like I've read some comments as well. It's like, yeah, but if you use everything, you can never summon. It's like, okay, but I think you can get pretty far with a way more limited box of units, because a lot of the SRs will still clear the endgame content as long as you have the good gear. So if you focus on the good gear first, you can always decide to go for summons later. So maybe I wouldn't say at the early stages don't summon at all, because that's like the Summoners War way of doing things. Never use your crystals for summons. Just go for straight up energy refreshes, gear up your account, get your shells in, get your artifacts in that game, get all of the good stuff first, and then you can start clearing things. Because in Summoners War, you can clear everything with free-to-play units. In here, I think you can get very far with just some standard units in the end. You get your permanent summon. Sure, you're going to get that one through just a bunch of achievements, because you're going to get a lot of summon tickets regardless, even if you use them or not. And I think from the beta, from the amount of summons that I did, I think I was closing in on like 600-ish summons. And I only used about 11 of those for crystals. So I used about 110 summons from crystals, and about 500 or close to 500 were for free. So with that sense, with 500 summons, you do get a decent amount of just SSRs, depending on your luck, of course. There is a pity system, so even if you go super unlucky, you're still getting stuff. So I would maybe say, if you're full free to play, don't use crystals for summoning at all and just see how far you get. And maybe if you're feeling like, okay, I'm not progressing anything, I have nothing to build. Like if you're really on the point, I have nothing to build, then you could maybe do it. But there are good damage dealers in SR. There are great healers in SR. There are good CC units in SR. Like everything that you could say is like, okay, there's a better unit in SSR, is probably having a pretty good counterpart in SR as well.
Yeah, and there's also, we get that I can't remember where we get it from. I don't think I actually have it on this one. Let me see. I don't know if it's like one of the pre-reg things or let me go my consumables. Do I have it? Yeah, so we have this one here as well. We get this supply pack. So my personal strat with summoning is hope I get a Sanya because she's super impactful. I'd love to get a Victor as well, a Marvel, a Kraken, you know, those key units. So I'll do some summons, but I'm going to reroll for, if I go back over to the summons for a sec, I'm going to reroll for a Lily. That's my play. Definitely want to do that. I just think not having Lily, me personally, I want to get that. And then if I have all the SRs that I need from that, I'm pretty much going to save. Now, I do also think with the select banner, I'm going to try and push as far as I can without using that. I ideally want to get to another SSR from my permanent summon before I look to that select banner, just in case, you know, like I'm tossing up between Tiamat and Rosa. If I pick one of those two up from the standard, I'd love to go ahead and select the other one. So, you know, it's a toss up between that. I'm going to be doing a playthrough on the test build on a fresh account where I test playthrough without using any summoned characters to see how bricky I think it feels. It will also come down to what units do you pull early on. If you get some good SRs, it could make it a lot easier. But I think holding out on the select banner could really help you in that you might get something else that you need and it might change your mind on that select banner. But if we are looking to, you know, trying to conserve as many summons as possible as free to play, like something like this is actually fantastic because there is two very strong units in here. We got Kaz and we got Turandot. And Kaz we've already spoken about with her, you know, her sleeping, her attack down, fantastic unit for the Doki Doki boss, also usable in RTA as we both saw. But then we also have the Turandot, who is going to be a great buff stripper for the Terrorfight because she's got this one. I mentioned this when I talked with Sean B, up to 120% turn gauge reduction, attack up and defense buff, and defense up. And then accuracy up to make sure she's landing this. And once again, that accuracy up, I don't know how much it is. It doesn't show me how much accuracy up is, but it's going to be beneficial when you're trying to land those strips and land those gauge reductions. So we do have that chest as well, which I think is something you want to hold out on. I think you definitely want to be watching and see who you get out of Turandot and also the Kaz, which is this Kaz here. And whichever one you don't get, pick up the other one to fill out that roster because it's a great roster. If you get both of them, pick the dupe you want more. But that's just another thing to consider as well as we look to summons. What's your thoughts on Freya, free to play, pulling for her?
Well, they're going to lower the banner to 80, which is definitely nice. I think that the main reason I would go for Freya is because she has the upgrade for Sanya, right? As far as I'm not mistaken.
Unfortunately, she has the upgrade for Chiaki and Kraken and Dinah, which are actually three amazing SR units. Dinah is insane for the amplification into bosses, which is massive. Kraken obviously being Kraken with his control and Chiaki for the boosting. So three fantastic ones, but I was the same. If Sanya was in there, I would 100% pull for the Sanya. But you know, these are, if you're missing all three of these, pop in a 10 pull and hopefully getting at least one of these would be really nice. Because those are pretty strong SRs, but once again, you might end up getting them from the standard banner. But without looking at those SRs, what's your thoughts? Do you think she's worth ignoring that 25% chance when you get an SSR to be a LD unit? Do you reckon she's worth ignoring that on pulls?
I would say first work on just permanent summons and try to get like a good unit in there, especially if you're re-rolling. I wouldn't go for like, oh, I want to get Freya within like 10 scrolls kind of pull or anything like that. Because the main thing, and we actually spoke a little bit about that earlier, Freya feels very replaceable. Just as Chiaki the Echo is probably already a good replacement. It has the attack buff, it has turn gauge, and sure, Freya does do it better the moment she's max skilled, and she does have like, well, duplicates are not even that necessary. But the moment she's max skilled, she's definitely going to do it very well. She has very good base stats. But then again, if you want to add into the proness, then you would have to use a lot more resources than you would have to use on a Chiaki the Echo, for example. So I would say that, once again, every SSR has a counterpart SR, which probably can do the job as well.
Yeah, that's definitely my play. I think the other thing for me is, like, even though the pity is reduced to 80, dumping 80 pulls into that banner and then going into here and still having a chance to get her, like, dude, that would make me uninstall if I put 80 pulls in to get Freya from her banner and then I did my first SSR after that was Freya. Like, obviously low chances of that happening, But dude, the fact that she's in this standard banner, the moment her banner starts, it's like, I feel like the rate up banner is something you look towards later on in the game once you've, filled out a pretty decent roster of these characters, because there's so many good characters. Rumoka, Rahu, Kloss, Lilith, Freya. A lot of people have saying, I've been saying Selene's is bad. I got to see how her passive block works, whether it only blocks passives on the skill 2 that are dedicated passives, or whether it blocks the passives that are written as passives at the end of a skill 1. I haven't actually tested that, but I think she could be really solid. Born's good, Rose is good, Tiamat's good, Tsukuyomi's good. Jada got a nerf. I'm waiting to see more testing on her. It's basically just about her raw numbers that I got to see. Ling Luo, obviously we get her anyway. Hellkid's great, Beyonton's great. Veronica, now that we know accuracy resistance isn't getting gimped as much as we thought, her strip is getting, is still really good. Chloros, I'm undecided on, and then Mia is another really good one. So there's only like 3 characters in this entire roster that I'm kind of iffy on, and the rest are great pulls in my opinion. Actually, Ling Luo is a bad pull because obviously we get a free copy, but I just think there's so much value in this standard banner that I'd rather be getting more of them because we have the soft pity at 50 than going for a rate up early on in the game. Is that something you kind of echo, or do you think differently?
No, I 100% agree. Plus, you can pull the, as we call it, LDs, like the Apex SSRs. You can pull those in here as well, which is just like coming from, once again, Summoner's War is absolutely insane. Like, you don't even have to drop like the special summons to get the LDs. And I'm not sure if those rates were boosted. It felt boosted to me in the beta because everyone was walking around with like 3 or 4 after like 12 days, which was an insane amount.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is as well with these is, because I pulled Doki, Shadow Sanya, and Lily, all from the standard banner in the first few days. But like every time you get an SSR, having a 1 in 4 chance of it being an LD unit, it's just like, that's exciting to me. I think that's one of the great things. So with that, I actually saw someone comment when I was streaming once, and it's actually true that, at least let me know your math. If you're rerolling for a specific character on the standard banner, you have more chances of hitting the specific LD unit you are targeting than hitting a specific 3-color unit that you're targeting, because there's only 5 of these guys and they take up 25% of the pool, and there's 17 of these guys and they take up 75% of the pool, and that 17 is actually, that's more characters than the 2.5 times 5.
Yeah, so, he's actually right with that. Like, because it's 0.75 against 0.25.
Yep.
And then it would be like on 15, it would be same. And on 17, it's more.
Yeah, if this was 15, you'd have the same chance of hitting any specific character you're targeting. But right now, on standard banner, if you're targeting a specific one character, it is easier to target a specific LD, which to me is just crazy when you think about that.
Absolutely. Like, if you say that to like any Sky Arena players, like, oh, you reroll for your most crazy LD, it's the most, like, the same chance as like any other unit. Is like, no, never. That won't happen.
Yeah, actually, one thing I hadn't checked here, I'm pretty sure you can get you can still get the LD SRs over here, which is good. Otherwise, that would really suck. But yeah, the fact that they're still in Freya's banner is good. You know what? I think we've been going for almost 40 minutes. Is there anything else you want to touch on from your free-to-play playthrough, free-to-play / low spender perspective? Any tips, anything else you want to say?
I would say if you play free-to-play and you definitely want to still invest a lot of time in watching videos. And that might be like the promotion for this channel, your channel, my channel, doesn't matter who it is. Maybe someone completely different. But read up a lot on it. Go on the Discord, go on Reddit, go on like anywhere where you can find information of someone already doing it for you. Because you don't have to put resources towards testing stuff if someone else already did the test.
Yeah, definitely. And extending on that, I would seek different people's opinions, because everyone is going to be biased towards an opinion they have. I know some of the guys, like, early on, I was all Tiamat. The new characters really threw a spanner in the works with who I would pick from the selector, because Rose's performance what is like the actual end game, because getting towards module farming and stuff like that, that's going to be achievable eventually for everyone. The true end games for me are going to be really, I think, the places where there is no cap on your performance, which to me is like Phantom Theater, guild bosses, and then PvP. I feel like those are the main quote unquote end game modes. Yes, you can see Threshold, farming Infernos as end game, but there is going to be ways for you to get towards doing that no matter who you pick. But for me, like, Rosa became higher value when you start seeing the calculations on how much actual single target damage she can deal. versus some of the other characters. So, definitely go check different people's opinions, because different people, if they have a different preference, it's not like one is completely right and one is completely wrong. It just gives you different perspectives so you can make your own decision. That was a great tip.
Yep, absolutely. And it's always good to watch multiple people as well, because in the end, like, one person can go super hard on one track of saying like, okay, everyone has to have this unit. And that's also what I would like to see. Like, I do think that they're going to be adding a balance patch, maybe add new units that we haven't tested yet. So that definitely might add up something in the mix that everyone is saying like, okay, now it's Tiamat and Rosa, but what about that new unit? Might that actually be the one?
Yeah, I saw that post where they said they'll announce new units. I believe, and I haven't had this. This is my assumption. You got to be careful in this game now when you say anything. You got to make it very clear that it's an assumption. My assumption would be that if they're about to reveal new characters that close to the launch, I reckon they're going to be the characters that will come in after Freya. I'd say Freya will probably be launch banner, and then these new characters that they reveal could probably be characters that are released after that. So it's like kind of like, I don't know what Summoners War does, but like, all the Star Rails and, the Hoyo model games, they telegraph characters coming, like weeks in advance. So that would be my assumption. But hey, if they are coming straight to the game, like, I mean, that makes a crazy theory crafting rush. And then, we got to just make our pick. That gives even more validity to the idea of hold out on using your selector as long as you can.
Absolutely. Well, the way Summoners War pretty much does it, like, there's a new character tomorrow, so there's not too much hype to that ROM right there.
There's no telegraphing it at all. Yeah, nope. Shit, that sucks. All right, well, I think that's just about enough. Like I said, I've held you here for long enough. I really appreciate you coming on the channel, dude. Once again, his channel will be linked in the description. Go show him some love. Like we mentioned, getting around all these different content creators, because everyone has different ideas, and you can get different thoughts. Like you said, if you just did a video on the Accura's resistance, going through some testing, that is a very important thing. I'm kind of waiting until we get like exact info, but at the moment, it is looking very sketchy compared to what it is. So definitely go check out that video as well. And yeah, once again, dude, thanks for coming on. Any final words?
Well, thanks for having me, and enjoy playing the game at the 5th of June, I would say.
100%. And reroll for Lily, or you're wrecking your account. And that pretty much sums it up. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.